So, good morning, everybody. Woke up feeling the hot and cold from new viral energy going through the body and hawked up a big ass loogie, and bam, everything is cool. Everything is good. I knew I had to take a nap on Saturday. My husband's like, "Why do you sleep so much?" I'm like, dude, this virus, when it comes through, you gotta sleep. You can't just not sleep. That's why rest is so important when your body is healing from a new evolution. Is sleep is paramount. And so we kind of shut up after that. But I mean, not everybody's built like these guys that are like 180 pounds, 200 pounds with such dense bones like he has, and lots of meat and muscle. And so, he has a lot more body to absorb all those viral shockwaves. I don't have as much body to him, so I have to rest. But we all have to figure out, how to work with what God has given us, and we all are. So anyways, I ran across this article about a lady who needs a liver transplant to have the only chance of surviving being exposed to the COVID. I don't know whether or not she was vaccinated or not. Not that it really makes a huge difference, but in some people's eyes, it does. And so she's a mom of three, and she's trying to raise $500,000 to save her own life. Now, you put stuff on GoFundMe, most likely, if you're in a hard luck situation, you have a bunch of kids, vaxxed or not, and maybe you're a person of color, you might get a lot of sympathy, and people will give money, whether it's $5 or $10 or $100. And most likely that'll happen. Most likely the community will probably save a person's life. As far as when they're down to that last little, like, what do you call it? Where they give you an actual time frame. You will not live unless you get this, and this done. Not like these medications that people are on a daily basis that it's only for comfort. It doesn't really save lives when you think about it, because all the maintenance medication, whether it's for high blood pressure, whether it's for diabetes, whether it's for all these different symptoms, a constellation of symptoms that people experience, it's not saving your life. I'll just be very quite honest. What it does, it's making you feel comfortable and doing things to your body that you are not equipping it to do because of your diets, the fact that you don't want to feel pain. So it's a shortcut, so you don't have to feel the evolution of actually regenerating and allowing your pancreas to provide insulin, or you're withholding sugar from your body because the sugar will cause then a spike because you don't have enough insulin. And so if you actually reset your body with salt, right, and you felt the pain a little bit in your pancreas, or maybe a lot, and you finally feel what it's like to actually produce your own insulin to regulate your sugar, you wouldn't need to be on diabetic medication. You wouldn't need to be on all these medications that people are using as a maintenance, okay, as a maintenance. And so when you're at the end of your rope, and I mean someone at the end of the rope when they're faced with having to get a transplant because they don't want to feel the pain of regenerating their liver and cleaning up their liver and feeling what it's like to actually fix their own body with their own immune system, both sides of the immune system, not just taking a vaccine to stop a virus, but when you actually feel the pain of cell regeneration, that's not very expensive. And you wouldn't be faced with this life or death situation. But our medical system, there's such a disparity. Well, they're creating a disparity between the rich and poor with the medical system, because the over-the-counter medications are not that hard to come by. They're relatively inexpensive. And that kind of sets the stage for then the prescription medication or for the pharmaceutical grade. So yeah, you're going to the drugstore to get Theraflu and what else? NyQuil and Allegra maybe. And then that's not enough, right? Because the body still wants to live. And so then you switch to a higher pharmaceutical grade. And maybe it's not prescription drug, but maybe it is a higher, I don't know, count or higher aggressive energy. But then eventually when you get diagnosed with something, it then turns into a prescription drug. And so that's when it really starts squelching the life that wants to live in your body. Okay? But in the meantime, let's just pretend that you got wind of the holistic world and you hear about the turmeric and the honey and the elderberry syrup and all these different things. Then you're switching to the same type of thing, the same aggressive energy. Okay? And that aggressive energy is squelching the evolution, squelching the growth and the development of your different organs that could have potentially regenerated. So you wouldn't have to land in the hospital looking for a transplant. But no, people don't know what's down the road if they're not aware of that. Their practices today are going to lead them down to a potential heart attack, stroke, and not survive them, cancer, transplants, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders. And so then let's go back to now they're in the holistic world, and that those herbs and extracts and everything are not enough, and their body is continuously falling apart. So they go back to the allopathic world, and maybe they experienced a heart attack. And so what do the loved ones do, the next of kin do? Whatever, I'm not saying that you died from the heart attack, but so you have a heart attack, they take you to the hospital, but you've been on your herbs and your extracts and all of your different little remedies from the holistic world, and eventually you're going to be given back to the allopathic world to go get then that coronary bypass, or go get that stent or that screw, or, I don't know, other types of transplants or implants to help the body process the day-to-day operations. And then eventually it then becomes something where you're uninsured because you're poor, and you may or may not receive the vaccine, and your liver is shutting down because of a new viral variant that's in your community. And now you're faced with having to raise money to save your life. And then someone put like a comment, but we care so much about everyone's health. Here is a free COVID vaccine that doesn't work. And if you really want to live, you need to have more money, And no, you don't, because let me tell you what. Hold on, I'm going to blow my nose. Salt, food, sugar, fruits and vegetables, processed food. My dog looks at me. All are relatively inexpensive. All of your little shortcuts are very cheap in the beginning, but over a period of time, all of the outcome of your little shortcuts are going to snowball into something so fucking expensive that you'll be faced with having to raise money from your community and basically be taken on as a pauper, begging through GoFundMe's to go and replace an organ, because you've allowed the over-the-counter medication and the prescription medication and all the therapeutics to essentially destroy yourself, that now you're left with absolutely nothing in your body at a deficit, begging for the one last hurrah. See, the $500,000 to raise to do a liver transplant, how do you know that that's going to actually, maybe it might give her a few years, but she may have so many other conditions, and she will continue to do so many things to destroy herself, that $500,000 for that liver is not going to be really worth much. It might and it might not, but in this dynamic environment, when you are not allowing your body to evolve to the level of the environment, you're not eating all the food in the food supply, you're taking all your prescription medications, you have a certain kind of lifestyle, you have high stress, and you're raising a bunch of kids, they're going to take the life out of you. They're going to cut down and shave off years and years off your life, that transplant that's worth $500,000 isn't really going to give you a major return on your investment. It may have been prior to this COVID, those transplants might give you a longer life. But no, at this point in this dynamic environment, even a transplant won't give you what you think is going to be return on that investment. And so this whole thing with the salt, the sugar, and the food supply and feeling pain, understanding viruses, that's all, when you think about it, that is so inexpensive relative to the therapies. Because even those free therapies, those three vectors, free vectors, they're attacking you at the micro level, causing more deficit diseases. Maybe not right away relative to your predispositions and how much life you still carry in your body, but down the road, as you keep partaking in all these different vectors and therapies and over-the-counter medication and prescription drugs, guess what? You're going to end up being one of the lucky few and maybe surviving a transplant, maybe surviving some event in your life, or be whittled down to a pauper begging on GoFundMe to save your life with some $500,000 transplant surgery. $500,000 transplant surgery. That's what the medical system, holistic system, has reduced people down to, basically being a pauper or showing how much money you have because you can afford a transplant. Not that that transplant's really going to give you that return on the investment, but hey, if I can afford a $500,000 transplant because I have really great insurance, that means I'm doing well. No, sorry, that's the psychological operations that a rich person can get access to these types of life-saving, 11th hour Hail Marys, but yet their belief system in the medical holistic system has caused them to get that freaking transplant that they could afford in the first place. And then a poor person's like, oh my God, this rich person is able to get a transplant. And oh man, that's so valuable. And so then all the poor people in the world are then trying to figure out how to get rich so they can afford all these damned surgeries and vectors and all these things that supposedly save your life, when actually their belief system in the medical holistic industry has caused them to be where they are at today. That is the Hegelian dialectic at its most purest form. The problem, reaction, solution. Create the problem. You have a very obvious, predictable reaction. Oh, and we have the solution. And I learned that, yes, from Alex Jones, but his solutions are the freaking supplements. So, even though I learned stuff from Alex Jones, he's really not doing anything better than what the allopathic industry is doing. Okay? So don't think that I'm promoting Alex Jones, but there are certain things that I have learned from him and then realized that he's still part of the problem by giving you all these FDA-approved supplement solutions, which is basically hormone replacement therapy without a prescription for it. And so, salt is free. When you think about it, the New World Order is about communism, but that's not a bad thing. It means it levels the playing field, it gives everybody access to health, wealth, and a long ass life. Okay? Salt, sugar, food, understanding pain, and understanding viruses. If everyone understood all of that, they wouldn't need the healthcare system to create such a disparity between the rich and the poor. It wouldn't create such a fervor to go and make money off of initial public offerings because of new drugs on the market or new therapies on the market. And then people are basically throwing their money at a drug that is like, what is it? It's a money pit, because all these different drugs out there are money pits. I don't care how popular they are, they're still money pits. Because even though you're maybe investing in something like Moderna or these really highfalutin drug companies, you take all of their prescription medication, all of their therapies, all that stuff, it'll shorten your lifespan even more. So essentially, not only are you giving all your money to this company, but you also giving your heart, soul, and body, mind, and spirit to them as well. That's the major human sacrifice between the holistic, allopathic, and energy healing world. And so the JayJay mentality is very communist, so to speak, because it levels the playing field, gives everybody equal access to evolution, to cell regeneration, to knowledge, to power, to balance. But no, as soon as you start investing in the holistic allopathic world, you have promoted the disparity between the rich and the poor, and then use those psychological operations to start siphoning money out of that system. Because then the poor are going to be like, I got to get all this health insurance. Not really doing shit for them because, they get all these different prescription medications thinking it's saving their life when really it's actually shortening their life. If they would have just got off their prescription medication, dealt with the pain, and ate all the food in the food supply and understood viruses for what they were instead of taking antivirals, they wouldn't be in this position of being afraid of viruses, of being afraid of other people, of being afraid of whatever. And they wouldn't be aging, they wouldn't be degrading, they wouldn't be at major learning deficits. They wouldn't be, there's a lot of things people wouldn't be if they would just get away from the holistic allopathic. But we know that's not a reality. But I wanted to point it out that I know that Michael Moore was all about, equitability in healthcare. But I'm sorry, even if you had free healthcare to everyone, it's like giving people free drugs that are drug addicts. You make them work for a drug, they won't be inclined to take so much of it and destroy themselves, right? But you give free healthcare to people, they will destroy themselves faster. You realize what probably helped me way back in the beginning? I think at some point in my life, I think for a couple of years, I was able to afford the $300 a month for my healthcare with Kaiser when I was in college. But maybe 3 years out of my my 20s and 30s and 40s, I didn't have health care. So if I didn't have health care, I had to do it on my own. If I had health care in my 20s, and if I had a lot of health care in my 20s and 30s, and even when I did go to Kaiser for my PMDD and they wanted to prescribe me Prozac, which I took for maybe about less than a month and then got off it very, very quickly. But if I had not gotten off, if I had health care in my 20s and 30s, I would be probably dealing with some kind of cancer at this point right now. Disease and chronic illness or autoimmune disorder. I was already on my way to something like that before I did the JayJay mentality because my PMDD was becoming so out of control and I didn't know what the hell was going on. And so either a person could be driven to suicide or they'd be driven to self-medication, drowning themselves in alcohol, drugs, or other things. Or I'd be driven to who knows what. Because when your body is so out of whack and you have no idea how to correct and balance it out, people do the most craziest things. Okay? So thank God I didn't have as much health insurance because if I did, I would have been way less of a person. I probably would have devised a JayJay protocol if I really put myself in the health and wellness industry and had access to it like some people do. So I'm glad we don't have free healthcare in America because it'll make you work harder to deal with your shit than go get anesthetized by some prescription drug or some allopathic drug or some over-the-counter drug, or even some people are turning to illicit drugs. But even then, those things, people are dying from them as well. And so anyways, this whole healthcare thing in the industry, it's such a smoke and mirrors. It really is. I see it for what it is when I see the power of salt, see the power of sugar, I see the power of fruits and vegetables and processed food. And when you see that people are dieting and they're taking all their different supplements and all of that stuff, you realize that starvation doesn't only happen in Ethiopia. Starvation happens right here in America. There are parents starving themselves and have starved their kids because their kids came in at a predisposition, totally underweight, have issues. Of course, you're not going to pronounce them all over Facebook because it's all HIPAA. But just look at people. Look at people around you. Look at the kids that they bear. And then you can kind of tell. You can kind of tell what people are dealing with. Because the parents haven't figured out their stuff and corrected their issues. The kids aren't going to either because they're going to take cues from the parents. And lifespans and genetic lines will not only be shorter, but they'll be cut off very quickly. And so, healthcare is such a double-edged sword. I'm telling you, medicine does not save lives. It leads you to perception that saves lives. What saves lives is when they finally screw you up to where you don't have a year. or less than that. You don't even have a month. You either get that quick transplant or you get that quick surgery. And that might buy you in a less dynamic environment. It might buy you maybe a few years. I mean, yeah, okay, if I'm in a car accident unconscious and they had to do the jaws of life to get me out, okay, yeah. Triage. Just like if you're out there in the war zone on the battlefield and you got your leg shot off by an RPG. Yeah, the first responders are out there stopping the blood, wrapping it up, giving you something for the pain so you're not exactly going nuts during that time. And then you get home and you eat all the food in the food supply. Yes, you keep wrapping your shot off leg so it doesn't bleed everywhere. And then you feel the pain of that leg regeneration. Oh, it's going to be painful, yeah. Because you need food, you need salt, you need water, you need fruits and vegetables. And so, yeah, if you're going to be regrowing limbs and organs and all that stuff, you're going to need a massive amount of food to basically rebuild your body. But triage and emergency, like out there in the field, is what saves lives. Not this maintenance shit, this therapeutic crap that's everywhere, that's out there. Now, you can say the perception, yes, that when you have not set people up correctly and there's a new virus in the environment, yeah, okay, you can give them some kind of therapeutic, right, like a vector to maybe lessen the heat. But that's assuming that they stay out of the public. That's assuming that if you get a vector and you're trying to lessen the heat of exposure, well, you still have to keep yourself away from massive amounts of people, even if they were all vectored. Because everyone's in different stages and different levels of dying and reproducing. And when you're dying and reproducing, you're going to be shedding all of your data everywhere like little mucus RPGs. And inevitably, it will be into the wind and someone's going to breathe it in. And maybe they weren't out there in the public, but they still breathed it in. Okay, so they have a vector to kind of help with that, right? But now you're into a crowd of people. They may have been all vector, but they're still in the process of dying and reproducing. And when people are in different stages of development or de-development or destruction, they're going to be releasing a lot of viral energy that even a vector won't be able to withstand, because that's going to be more, it'll be more energy than the body can handle. Like a short, like when you're putting the wrong adapter to the wrong device, eventually it shorts it out. Well, that's going to be the same thing, even those who are vectored. They're around a lot of people with different levels, different stages of cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders. They're going to short out. And it may take one experience to do that. And so, yeah, when people are collecting all this data in their body, the body hasn't exactly processed it all. And so you're out and about, maybe you're vectored, yeah, okay, and you dealt with cancer, disease, and chronic illness. So now you have this upload that right now is kind of sitting there for a minute. But eventually when the body is activated, and even if you're eating food, and you have weak heart, weak lungs, weak vital organs, will you survive your sleep one night when the body's going through reparations? When people don't wake up because I've seen, someone that I knew a long time ago who passed away recently. And this is just when society was opening up. And he was all about the vectors. Oh yeah, everybody should get their vector. I can't understand all these anti-vector people, blah, 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 right? And I see it way back early on in his Facebook. And then I see right before he passed away that he was hanging out with a bunch of his colleagues. They were all celebrating the end of the lockdown. They're all hanging out together. And he's drinking alcohol and everything, and I'm just like, and I see in the next few posts, oh, this gentleman passed away. Now, is correlation equal causation? I would say there's contributing factors. Yeah, he got a vector, but that vector wasn't enough. I'm sure everyone in his cohorts were all vectored because that was probably the rules of that institution, is that all professors get vectored. And so they're all hanging out together at the end of the lockdown, celebrating in-class teaching, in-person teaching. And then he passed away. They don't say what he passed away from, but I can imagine he wasn't, he wasn't like he was, he wasn't on his deathbed, like dealing with cancer and fighting something. Yeah, I'm sure he had different issues that were being managed by his doctor, but he was able to go to these parties and go to these things and teach class. So he wasn't on his deathbed fighting something. But it was the fact that his body was taking on viruses that it couldn't handle even when he was vectored. And so right there, overnight probably, or a heart attack or a stroke, he couldn't survive it. That's what happens when people are at a deficit taking vectors and thinking that winning by default is like everything. Just because you survived a therapy, just because you survived not taking a therapy, winning by default doesn't mean shit, because it doesn't adequately prepare you for the real battle when that battle comes about. So yeah, if all these soccer teams won by default, they would never get any kind of experience in to learn new and different plays or to practice the new and different plays they did in practice. And so winning by default, you haven't really earned that win. It's still a win, yes. Technically, it's still a win, and you can celebrate that. I mean, I won by default in I won by default in one half of my court cases I was in the last couple of years. The other one I actually won because I showed up. Just simply showing up is enough sometimes. If the other person doesn't show up, then you won. And so then you don't have a judgment against you for whatever reason. Okay? But simply winning by default is not enough. But people like to take that enough. And so every time you take a pill, powder, supplement, detox, or not, or a vector, or a therapy, or a surgery, or some kind of, whatever, that's winning by default if you still survive it. When you don't survive it, then you lost. Oh, but do you really want to find out that was your last default, that your last potential to win by default? Or you really want to start the battle inside and know that you can win and finally just be in control of the battle within, not have somebody else control that. So the healthcare industry is not a kosher industry, but try to tell that to someone who thinks that pain is destruction. Oh, but every time you mitigate that pain with that, whatever that is, you have now taken years off your life. Oh yeah, you can enjoy your fun now. I think the devil says, hey, yeah, go enjoy your stuff, but you're not going to know when. I'm going to pull the rug out from under you. And that's what happens with all of these cancer patients, all of these patients out there. You may get a stay of execution. You may win by default, but you will not know when the rug will be pulled out from under you. And that's not the kind of life that I want to live, is where somebody else controls. And it could be just a virus that controls when you live and when you die. When that rug gets pulled out from under you, everyone's devastated around you. I thought he had 5 years. I thought he had 2 years. I thought she had 3 years. In this environment, you have no idea how many years you really have after you've done a therapy. Now it's like, now you just watch people drop like flies. And you're like, and then people are like, they're so numb to it that they're like, oh yeah, it's supposed to happen. Oh yeah, it's supposed to happen. So anyways, all right, have a good day.